Welcome to the temporal waves for December 2023. I'll cover the astrological energies for the month ahead. My name is Molly. I'm an astrologer and I work with one-on-one individuals, coaching sessions, and I also educate on astrological wisdom and how we can align to the cycles of nature and utilize this incredibly practical knowledge. My transit reports focus on the planetary aspects, so they are relevant regardless of the system or branch of astrology that you study, because I am emphasizing the planetary influences over signs. Though I do include knowledge over the nakshatras so that you have better insight into the auspicious activities for each of the days I cover. So, going into December, we are entering a Mercury retrograde on the 12th. Now, if you're a big astrology nerd, you would know that we're actually technically today on the 1st in the pre shadow of Mercury retrograde, but take it with a grain of salt if you like. But know that Mercury did enter into the sign of Capricorn today. Mercury left its sign of detriment in Sagittarius. Why is Mercury in detriment in Saggy? Well, if you know a Sag, you will know that Sagittarian energy is quite prone to exaggeration, hyperbole, if you will, and no filter. So it's not the most diplomatic sign for Mercury to carry out its functions in. And I'm not one of those new agey astrologers that acts like everything is equal, because it's not. That's why we study astrology. Certain planets have an easier time in certain signs. So Mercury in Capricorn, starting today, is really all about taking that grand vision and optimism of Sag, which is a strength of the energy, and breaking that vision into tangible parts in order to get something done. Because Sag might have the great idea, but Capricorn is the energy that can implement it. So Mercury in Capricorn is great at that. Mercury retrograde is all about refining our ideas and reviewing things, wrapping up loose ends, so to speak, and doing more of that review rather than launching. So it's a good time to plan this month. We have Neptune turning direct on December 6th. It has been retrograde for quite some time in Pisces. Jupiter turns direct on December 30th. And Uranus is still retrograde all of December. It will turn direct on the 27th of January. So let's get into the key dates for December. As I already mentioned, today as I'm filming this, December 1st, Mercury has entered Capricorn. On December 4th, Venus enters Scorpio. Now, Venus in Scorpio is debilitated. Venus is the planet that represents relationships, finances, value systems. Scorpio is scared or intimidated of that energy. Scorpio, you could say, Venus in Scorpio in particular has a fear of intimacy in a way. There's a fear of connectivity. It's fixed water. It wants to protect what is theirs. It doesn't want to open up emotionally or be too vulnerable. It doesn't want to be taken advantage of. So Venus in Scorpio is a challenged Venus. And Venus will be doubly challenged because it'll be in opposition to Uranus most of the month as well. And that's the planet of instability. So we can see this reflected in economic markets being unstable, and perhaps in the relationship realms as well. December 6th, Neptune stations direct, as I mentioned. On the 12th, Mercury turns retrograde at 8 degrees Cap, tropical. It's the new moon on the 12th in Sagittarius, according to the tropical zodiac. But in Vedic, it'll be in Mula Nakshatra. So what's this new moon all about? The new moon I love because it's conjunct Mars, the planet of action, and it's trining Neptune, the planet of inspiration, imagination, and delusion. Neptune at this point, as I mentioned, is direct. So this new moon's all about planting those seeds for those big vision dreams that might require a little bit of optimism and what's the word? Naivete, maybe. Having delusion is actually necessary, I think, to dream something big into fruition and to do something that hasn't been done before or isn't done by many. You could say that, think of all the great artists or inventors that during their lifetime were never recognized. And now people are saying, wow, that was a great idea. Or you have inventors expanding on their inventions. Yet during their time, people thought they were crazy. So if you're paving a path that hasn't been done before, just know that people are going to tell you you can't do it. And I love Saggy energy. I am a Sag because Sag is the energy that says, oh, if you think I can't do it, that makes me want to do it even more and bigger. So Sag dreams big, and that planet of action conjoining the new moon, squaring Neptune, gives you the energy and that healthy amount of delusion to just go for it. So I would say dream big for your visions for the new year. On the 22nd, the Mercury retrograde regresses back into Sag. So from the 22nd on, Mercury is kind of disabled, you could say, because it's in a sign that doesn't do the best in. But again, it's a good sign for inspiration, big vision, not necessarily finishing things, not necessarily the details, but the inspiration is there and the optimism. But since it's also retrograde, it's not going to be easy for mercurial pursuits. There might be more delays, etc., like is typical for a retrograde. But life goes on, and sometimes we can't wait a month, right, to do business contracts or to carry out a project or to finalize something, a contract. So I have dates in my days of harmony that are 2 days in December that are actually very auspicious for business dealings, despite the retrograde, despite the pre-shadow. So stay tuned for that. And on the 26th, we have the full moon in Cancer. The full moon is going to be in Ardra Nakshatra, which is represented by the teardrop as I've pictured here. And Ardra is really about demolishing, purging, unlearning habits that need to go, and removing ways of being or things from your life that might be energetically draining you. Full moons in general, people tend to forget, a lot of the time people think of full moons as like very social things. Depends on the full moon. But in general, full moons are about release, bringing things to completion. And we have a lot of that energy towards the end of the month, and it's the final month of the year. So we're definitely feeling that very strongly. Ardra is also a nakshatra that is good for any sort of destruction. You could say it's also good for like overcoming enemies. It's definitely a destructive nakshatra, but that doesn't have to be a negative thing, right? If we're channeling it towards things that don't serve us, or removing things from our situation, environment, etc., that don't belong, then we can really channel this in a great way. And there's a lot of harmonious aspects on the 26th. The full moon will be trining Saturn, so that emphasizes bringing things to completion, sextiling Jupiter, expanding how you're thinking about things, getting a bigger perspective. And Venus is trining Neptune. So again, that's kind of heightening the emotional and feeling nature of this full moon, but it will be one where you might be getting really real in the feely feels. On December 29th, Venus enters Sag. Alrighty, so days of intensity. Now, my days of intensity, if this is like a weather report, the days of intensity are like the inclement weather. Now, depending on who you are, what you're trying to do, and your perspective, the days of intensity don't have to be something that you hide under your blankets all day with. They can be channeled for what you need to do, but it's good to know because days of intensity are probably good days to avoid doing things where you have to like gather with big groups of people, because the more people you add to something, the more unpredictability and the more liability, you could say. And so days of intensity, you can count on them being days where the collective mood is a little more distraught, if you will. But hey, maybe you're creating a play, so you can channel that in a positive way. But the analogy I give is Imagine the days of intensity being like where it's a tumultuous snow storm. And for many people, they're not going to want to go outside. But hey, if you want to go snowboarding, that's the day you want to pick. So it's good to know about them. So on December 3rd, the moon is squaring the sun, Mars, and Saturn. This is what we call a T square. So there's kind of a lot of resistance on this day of maybe getting things done. On December 8th, the moon is squaring Pluto. Moon, hard aspect of Pluto, is emotional volatility. December 11th, the moon conjoins Mars. So it's blending with the planet of impulsivity and aggression, squaring Saturn. So this can be a day where impulsivity can lead you into longer term negative consequences with that kind of harsh lessons of Saturn squaring it. On December 15th, we've got the moon conjunct Pluto. So a volatile emotional day. The moon is also squaring Venus, the planet of relationship and harmony. And it's also squaring Jupiter, the planet of belief systems. And we have Venus squaring Pluto, so the planet of relationships is stressed out. And Mars is squaring Neptune, where there can be misguided action or confused action. So I would say this is a day where there could be like disagreements over politics that lead into like a greater misunderstanding than they needed to. Things just getting blown out of proportion in the communication realm, especially because Mercury's retrograde at this time as well. So, it's one of those days where conflict that, could really be avoided over something petty could really be blown out of proportion. So keep that in mind if you're planning a party, as many people do in December. It might not be the best date for that. I've got some great days on the next slide. On December 17th, the moon conjoins Saturn and squares Mars. This is kind of like an inversion of the energies on the 11th, where we have the moon with Saturn in square to Mars. Mars square Saturn is really about impulsivity that has negative, longer term consequences. So just take greater care on the 11th and 17th of the month in what you're doing. Pay closer attention, right? Mars squares Neptune really from the 12th to the end of the month. And Mars square Neptune can be not great for anything that involves like precision and focused action, because Neptune's very nebulous and it's disturbing Mars. On the 28th, this is when Mars square Neptune actually is exact, and the moon is opposite Pluto and squaring Jupiter. So Mars squared Neptune exact happened last, I believe, in March, and there were a bunch of ship accidents during this time. If we think about it, it's the planet of war and violence and aggression and destruction in a way, coming into a hard, difficult aspect with Neptune, which rules over the masses, mass media. It also rules over the ocean. Anything has to do with maritime or water. The god Poseidon is the ruler of Neptune. So we can see kind of global crisis involving water, uh, potential catastrophes with water or boats, on a more evolved or higher level. To channel this on an individual level, we can think of Mars square Neptune as, while it's not good for very precise action and you need to be paying more attention during this time, it can be really good for like tapping into the spiritual insight and more obscure otherworldly information. So it can be great for channeling creativity. And in one of my posts recently, I talked about how actually many visionary artists have Mars in hard aspect to Neptune. So it's a very visionary energy. Let's get into the days of harmony for December. So on the 9th, the moon conjoins Venus and opposes Jupiter. So the 9th, we have a very sociable energy. This would be a great day for a party, actually. Why is that? Well, we have the moon in JYESTHA Nakshatra, which is good for business, trade, diplomacies, buying and selling. And yes, Mercury is in pre-shadow, but this would be a great day. Say you just put your house on the market. This would be a great day to actually finish and sign the contract. Why? Because this nakshatra is very auspicious for that. And it's just a fun social energy too. So it can be a good time to gather with friends and there's this kind of oppositions don't always have to be bad. Venus opposite Jupiter to me is like an expansion of Venusian things. It can also speak to overdoing things, right? Being indulgent, right? But I would say it kind of expands Venusian things, which is love, harmony, connection. So it's a good day for a party. On December 13th and 14th, the moon trines Jupiter and the moon squares Neptune. The nakshatra for these days is Mula, which is all about gathering knowledge, studying more occult, esoteric subjects. It's also good for creativity or sexual activities. Yeah, so anything kind of more expansive on the 13th and 14th. On December 18th, moon trines Venus, the moon sextiles Mercury, and the moon sextiles Jupiter and Uranus in the nakshatra of Shatabisha, which is a healing nakshatra. It's actually very auspicious for any sort of healing work, and that's why I put the caduceus there. Even though Mercury is retrograde, this is also a good nakshatra for technology and business dealings. So, as I mentioned, life goes on. We have to kind of do things still, despite Mercury being retrograde. So, if you are going to pick a date to finalize a project, sign a contract, do a business negotiation, the 9th and 18th are the best days of this month to do that. And I also just want to add that it could be a good day also for like a treatment, any sort of healing or medical treatment you need. By the way, I am not a doctor. Do not take this as replacement for medical advice or your own wisdom and intuition. But know that if you do have to pick a date within December to like get that cavity filled or schedule your root canal, obviously with Mercury being retrograde, it's not ideal, but the 18th would be one of the better days to do that. And on December 22nd, we have the moon conjunct Jupiter and Venus. The moon is also sextiling Saturn. So this is a potentially expansion of Venusian things and reaping maybe the benefits of hard work and bringing things to a close. The nakshatra of this day is the moon is in Bharani, which is all about bringing an end, a completion to things. And it's also about working with fire. So I don't know, maybe you're like a metal worker, metalsmith, and or maybe you work with fire in other capacities. It's a good day for that. Again, it's kind of this releasing energy in preparation for that full moon on the 26th. That's really going to be about finalizing things. And on the 22nd, it's the first day after the solstice. So we're celebrating the sun coming back, the light returning. That's why Sag rules over this month of December, because, it's the archer that can like see the light at the end of the tunnel again. On December 31st, we've got the moon trining Jupiter, and the moon's also trining the sun and Mars, the planet of action. So this can be a day of inspired action. We are very close on December 31st to Mercury being out of retrograde, but I would say this would be a good day if you are wanting a raise, a promotion, to apply for a different position. I would start drafting your kind of letter, getting your resume in order on the 31st, and be ready to submit it on the 2nd of January, because this nakshatra, Maga, is all about moving to higher and better positions in life, seeking favors from those in power, and honoring ancestors, or doing any kind of ceremony on the 31st. So a good way to wrap up your year. Say you have your own business and you're wanting to like expand or launch something. I would say this is a good day to gather that inspiration, and then on the 2nd, actually release it into the world. And you might have really beneficial results as we enter into the new year. This is my conclusion for the December 2023 astrology. I work with people one-on-one. If you are wondering your personalized transit, so how all this information relates to you on a way more individualized level, I do life mapping. I will help you understand your natal chart, so your unique gifts, your dharma, and your mission here, as well as any challenges on your path. and understand the timing that you're currently in. So, the year you're in, the phase and cycle of life that you're in, so that you can be in rhythm with reaching your biggest dreams. This would be a great gift for a friend for the holidays, if you want to be generous, as Sag season is known for. Or perhaps you know someone whose birthday is in December, and most, like 90% of Sagittarians are into astrology. So it would be a great gift to yourself or a loved one if it's your birthday month. You can check out all of my offerings at radiantguidance.com. If you liked the video, please like, subscribe, and share with a friend. Have a beautiful rest of your day.